Bijan Robinson for the Falcons leads this category with 822 yards from scrimmage right now. That's impressive. And the fact that he's done that in 5 games. Welcome to Just the Stats NFL, the show that covers the NFL all-time greats to the current players that are also leading the NFL. In this episode for Thursday, Top 10's, we'll be looking at some more defensive and other categories of Top 10's for the season, as well as taking a look at the standings. Quite a change in the standings from just 1 week, and especially 2 weeks. We'll look at that. The changes are dramatic. Fascinating to watch these games, and just the games you expect the teams to lose, they win, and vice versa. So we'll take a look at that as well. So this podcast is Thursday, and as I mentioned in the previous one, trying to keep this to like about 25, 30 minutes. And we'll just go with that every day, Monday through Friday. Probably try to get it out every morning, hopefully at a set time, and I'll try to go live with the podcast for anybody that wants to chime in with comments and so forth. So, yeah, we're going to look at some more stats for the season. I did some yesterday for the Wednesday podcast. Prior to that, I did podcasts on Week 6 game results, Top 10's in different categories. And for that, I had charts for the first time, which I created. I haven't had time to do that for any other podcast, but I will ultimately have that ready to go hopefully in a week or two. I'm going on vacation tomorrow, but I'm hoping that while I'm on vacation, I can create the charts. Creating the charts is what takes time. But once I have them, it's just a matter of replacing information. So that's easy to do versus just inputting the information initially. So that should make it better if you happen to be watching the podcast. You won't just be watching me. I'll have a chart every time I talk about some type of stat. Any top 10 I put up there, you'll see a chart. At least it's something else to look at. So with that, we're going to pick up with a couple of offensive stats, and then we'll look at some defensive stats. The one I didn't do yesterday as far as rushing goes is rushing yards by quarterbacks. And I'm tracking that because you got some quarterbacks that are in the top 10 all time, with Lamar Jackson, number 1 all time, as far as rushing yards by a quarterback. But right now, this season, he might be up there except for the fact that he's missed 2 games. So he's still in the top 10. He's number 8. But right now, Josh Allen is number 1 in rushing yards by a quarterback with 254. Justin Fields has 235. Now, Justin Fields is only 19 yards behind, and he's done it in 1 fewer games than Josh Allen. So once they even out the amount of games, he'll probably pull ahead of Josh Allen. Patrick Mahomes is 3rd, 222 yards, and he's been doing that more out of necessity rather than design. He's just had to be on the move with the receivers. He's had difficulty in having his receivers on the field. So that his number will probably drop as that team gets more receivers back. And Jalen Hurts, 195. So only 3 quarterbacks right now with over 200 yards this season so far. Jaden Daniels is 5th with 176, but he's done that in 4 games. So we'll see how that goes. And then you have the rookie Jackson Dart, who's just started 3 games, and he's already got 167 yards. So he's averaging a decent amount of yardage right now. We'll see how that goes, if he can continue on, with that, and see where he ends up finishing. And then obviously Lamar Jackson, like I said, is 8th, and he'll fly back up this list once he comes back. He's on a bye this week. So with 3 weeks of not playing, he should be, hopefully for the Ravens, he's back and ready to go. That team needs him badly. All right, let's take a look at one more stat that I haven't done yet, and I'm going to start doing it on a weekly basis as well. I just had to find the right location for it where it worked out the way I wanted, but this is yards from scrimmage. And I wanted to get this stat because, you've got these running backs primarily. This is going to fall under them, but who catch a lot of balls out of the backfield. So they're getting as many or equal amount of receiving yards or some amount of receiving yards as well as rushing yards. So I wanted to take a look at that. Now, Bijan Robinson for the Falcons leads this category with 822 yards from scrimmage right now. That's impressive. And the fact that he's done that in 5 games, he's got 822 yards in 5 games so far from scrimmage. I mean, we're talking about what, 160 yards or something like that a game he's averaging from scrimmage. That is a lot of yardage. So second, Christian McCaffrey has 780 yards right now. And he's actually got more of those receiving than he does rushing, which is obviously very different than anybody else right now. Jonathan Taylor's third with 750. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba, 707. And most of those, 669 or something, are by receiving. So not too many rushing. So those are your top 5. I guess there's top 4. Puka Nacua is 5th with 668. He was on a great pace himself until last week when his yardage really dropped. But you got 4 players with 700 or more yards, and then Robinson with 800. So you've got several players on a pace to have more than 1,700 yards of offensive yardage. With Robinson even greater than that, somewhere he could push the 2,000 yards from scrimmage. So we'll have to watch that. I'll have to check out the record for that. This is the new stat I wanted to throw out there, but those are your top players. And like I said, he's the only one over 800. Bijan Robinson, only player over 800 yards this season from scrimmage. Then you've got 3 more over 700, only 2 more over 600. That's Puka Nacua and James Cook. And then you've got quite a few from spot 7 to 15 who have 500 or more yards from scrimmage. Now, when you're looking at the top 10, you've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the top 10 are running backs, and then the only wide receivers are Jackson Smith-Njigba and Puka Nacua that make this top 10. Now, the interesting one to watch here is Rico Dowdle, who has 576 yards right now. Now, he's been averaging, just these last 2 games where he started, he's averaging over 200 yards a game from scrimmage. So that's what's pushed him up this list so fast to make it into the top 10. So in the last 2 games, he's had about 450 or more of his yards in those 2 games of the 576 he has. So he's just been really cranking out some good games. So that's a list of your top 10 players from yards from scrimmage right now. All right. Let's take a look at some defensive numbers this time around for the season. And right now, not much has changed from last week. Devin Lloyd still leads the NFL with interceptions with 4. That's what he had last week, so nothing new there. And then you still have the same 3 players with 3 interceptions. Kevin Byard from the Bears has 3. Jalen Petrie from the Texans. Texans had a bye week, so they didn't even play. And then Kirby Joseph for the Lions. They all have 3 interceptions. And then you have a multitude of players with 2 so far. Now, looking at tackles this season, Jordan Brooks for the Dolphins has 66 tackles this season. Bobby Wagner for the Commanders, 65, and Jamian Sherwood has 60. Those are your top 3, the only players with 60 or more. And then you have quite a few players in the 50s. You got Nate Landman for the Rams with 58, Cedric Gray, Titans 56, and then you've got some more with 54 and 53. That's your leaders right now as far as tackles. And this is, again, what I was saying earlier about once I get this on a graph, I'll be putting this up on the screen so you can see it without me just rattling off the numbers. It's better for you to be able to see these numbers. All right, let's look at tackles for loss. And this is another interesting thing. I love the NFL Pros stats. You can really manipulate them in all kinds of ways if you want to look at certain games, certain positions, and so forth. But what's strange, I think personally, that tackles for loss is an important stat. You can have a lot of tackles, but if it's people that are running past the line of scrimmage, you're tackling them to keep them from getting too many yards, but they've already got some yards. Tackles for loss, to me, shows that you're getting, whether it's a quarterback or a running back or whoever, behind the line of scrimmage, that team is losing yards. To me, that's an important stat, even more than pressures, what does that mean? Because you don't know what happens from a pressure. Is it just an incomplete pass? Quarterback pressures, obviously they create havoc on the quarterback, but I just don't think it's the same as a tackle for loss or a sack. Those both cause the player to lose yardage. And here's the problem. Whatever reason, as far as I'm looking at this chart, tackles for loss is not a category specifically for the NFL Pro. And yet I can go to ESPN and look at their defensive stats, and they do have tackles for loss. It's under the sack department category. Just interesting. I'm not quite sure how these two sites handle that particular category. Anyway, because sometimes obviously a sack is a tackle for loss, but so is tackling the running back behind the line of scrimmage or a wide receiver on us, play, some type of a play where, he catches a ball behind the line of scrimmage and he's tackled immediately. So anyway, just a comment on some of the sites I look at trying to get these numbers. But looking at tackles for loss specifically this season, Max Crosby continues to lead this category. He's got 10 tackles for loss this season. That's really an impressive number in 6 games. That's almost, it would almost get him. He's on pace to definitely be in the top 10, but J.J. Watt has the top 3 spots. And you'd have to have so many. Already, Max Crosby would have to have 13 to 15 tackles for loss to break the record. J.J. Watt had 39 tackles for loss, which is the record for most tackles for loss in a season. Second number and third, which he also holds, is 29. So that's a 10 tackles for loss difference from the number one number of 39 to the second and third place spots. Anyway, Max Crosby's basically on about a pace to maybe finish somewhere around that second, third spot. We'll have to watch that. Brian Burns is second, as well as Byron Young. Burns for the Giants, a linebacker there, and Young for the Rams, a linebacker. They both have 9. Then you have 2 players with 8, Myles Garrett for Cleveland and Jeffrey Simmons for the Titans. They both have 8. Then you have quite a few players with 7 or 6. A lot of players with 6. But right now, Max Crosby continues to wreak havoc on offenses, other teams' offenses. All right. So that's that. Let's take a look at quarterback pressures. And I do think these are important. I just wonder sometimes. Nick Bonito, 34 quarterback pressures. There's 3 players with 30 or more. Aiden Hutchinson for the Lions with 32, and Micah Parsons for Green Bay with 30. Now, he's got 30 already. He's only started 4 games. Obviously he was traded. They've played 5 games, so he's got 30 already. So, by the end of the season, he could be the number 1 player in that category. And then you got quite a few players in the 20s, but only George Karlaftis for the Chiefs has 29. Then there's a drop to a couple of players with 27. That's being Tuli Tuipulotu for the Chargers and Jared Verse for the Rams. And then you got a bunch after that with 26 or 25 and so forth. Those are quarterback pressures. Now looking at actual sacks, though, right now it's Nick Bonito for the Broncos with 8. Now he had 4 in one game, so that kind of gave him a big boost. Byron Young for the Rams has 7.5. Right now, Bonito, man, he's got 8 sacks, 34 quarterback pressures. He's really looking good. Brian Burns for the Giants, also, he has 7 sacks. Looking good there. And then Aiden Hutchinson for the Lions with 6. Those are your top 4. Then you've got 3 players with 5 or 5.5. And then quite a few with 4.5. So right now, Nick Bonito is leading in the sack department. All right. Those are some of the stats I wanted to take a look at to see how things were going in the NFL as far as players this season. So let's take a look at the NFL standings. I think this is just crazy. It's so hard to predict who's going to win a game. I mean, I guess you can predict that the Jets are going to lose. Other than that, I don't know. All right, let's start with the AFC East. Now, this 2 weeks ago, after week 4, going into week 5, there were only 2 undefeated teams, the Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles. Since then, they both have lost 2 games in a row. So they're not even a one-loss team anymore. And Bills are not even in first place. That just shows you how different things have went. It's amazing to see what's happened in the NFL this season. So looking at that, the Patriots and the Bills are both 4-2, and this is a runaway because the Dolphins are 1-5 and the Jets are 0-6. So this is going to be a 2-horse race. And 2 weeks ago, I was saying, looks like the Bills have basically really started to run away with this division. That's because they had won 4 straight, while the Patriots had lost, I guess, at least 3 games. Since then, the Patriots have went on a 3-game streak, and the Bills have went on a 2-game losing streak. So the Patriots now are 4-2, as the Bills are, but the Patriots in the division are 2-0, while the Bills are 2-1. So they do have a lead in that category because the Patriots beat the Bills the week before to give the Bills their first loss. So this turns out that this could be a much more interesting race than initially we thought. Now, looking at the AFC North, Bengals tried to do something. They picked up Flacco to see if they could stay in this race, but they're going to need the Steelers to falter in some way. But right now, the Steelers have this in hand. At least right now, it's early, obviously. They've only played 5 games, but they are 4-1. Only one of 2 teams in the AFC that have 1 loss. Going into this last week, there were several teams with only 1 loss, and again, several of them lost. But Steelers 4-1. The Bengals are 2-4. Ravens 1-5. Browns 1-5. So the Steelers really are looking good. Now, the one caveat here is they've only played 1 game in the division, so they're 1-0 in the division. So this could change a lot when they start playing more divisional games. But right now, they are looking good. They're 3 wins in a row right now. Now, looking at the AFC South, this could still be a race, but the Colts and the Jaguars were tied at 4-1 going into last week. The Colts won, the Jaguars lost. So now the Colts are 5-1, the Jaguars are 4-2. So the Colts now, they were already in the lead anyway because within the division they're 1-0, but also in the conference they're 4-0. and while the Jaguars are 2-1. But this is still close as well because Colts and Jaguars have only played one divisional game, so things could change there. That while the Texans and Titans have played 2 division games, but they're already falling behind. Now the Texans have only played 5 games, so it's a possibility if they were to win, they'd be 3-3, so they wouldn't be that far behind with the opportunity to still play the Colts. So this could be a race minus the Titans. They're just not looking good, fired their coach, so we'll see what happens with them. But I don't think they have the manpower to keep up with any of these teams in the AFC South. Now, looking at the AFC West, this is a close one here. I tell you what, the Chargers and the Broncos just have the opportunity to walk away when the Chiefs were down, and they're not doing it. Right now, the Chargers and the Broncos are 4-2. The Chiefs are 3-3, and the Raiders are 2-4. So this is close. Where the Chargers really dominate in this division is they're already 3-0. They've played every team in the division already once, while the other teams in the division haven't played anybody else within the division other than the Chargers. And the Chargers won every game against their divisional rivals. So that's given them a big heads up. So even if they lose and the Chiefs were to win their game, they'd still be tied. Chargers would still be in first. So that's handy for them. But this is going to be a very tough division as the season goes. I mean, if the Chiefs continue to get some of their receivers back, they could make a definite push. I think the Raiders are even in it if they can figure out their offensive line. Right now, Ashton Genty is a good running back, but he gets hit behind the line of scrimmage and a handoff more often than any other running back in the NFL. I mean, he touches the ball and somebody's on him. He's broken more tackles in the NFL than any other running back. So he's impressive, but you just can't ask him to do it all. The offensive line has got to improve. And Geno Smith has got to improve his play and stop the interceptions if the Raiders are going to try to hang in this and be around later in the season. And then for the Broncos, Bo Nix just needs to continue to get a grasp of Peyton's offense. And that defense is good. So we'll just have to see if they can boost their offense somewhat. Now, the Chargers, they're the ones that jumped out to the early lead, and they still have the lead, but they've started to falter somewhat. And their defense, which I thought was going to be really good, has just been basically so-so. They're 4-2. They've got 127 points they've scored, but they've given up 125. So that is not good. All right, so that's a look at the AFC West. That's the look at the AFC. Let's take a look at the NFC. So we'll start with the NFC East. Again, we'll look at the Eagles. They were 4-0. Looked like they were going to run away with this division. They've since lost 2 games. Fortunately for them, no one in the division is really doing much either. The Commanders had a golden opportunity to win. They lost at in the end of their game, so they're 3-3. The Cowboys are 2-3-1, and the Giants are 2-4. Now the Giants are trying to get themselves in this as well. Now that they put in Jackson Dart, they've looked much more exciting for the Giants. It's just too bad that Neighbors was hurt, because you add him to Dart and Scatabo, you'd have really 3 really great players. So right now the Giants are just trying to work out, receivers, people who can catch the ball reliably and get open. But right now Dart's just taking it on himself to run the ball or run around until somebody does get open. But this is an exciting division. In fact, you've got 3 quarterbacks here, the Eagles, Commanders, and Giants, who all have these running quarterback type players. Cowboys with Prescott's the only one that's more of not that he can't run around, but he's more of a pocket passer. Very close division. The Cowboys look interesting just because the amount of points they can put up, but they give up more than they're scoring. So they are giving up, so far they've given up 184 points this season, which only the Ravens have given up more. The Ravens, not a team you would have expected, but only team giving up more points than the Cowboys. So the Cowboys allow other teams to be in the game just for the fact their defense has not been playing well at all. So we'll see if the Eagles can hold on here. They're 1-1 in the division. The Commanders are 1-0. So that's a little edge for them. And we'll see if the Commanders can get their offense together, keep everybody on the field. They've had different people out. They need their top wide receiver to come back so that they can, Deebo Samuels has been good, but he's really not your typical number one wide receiver. They need Terry McLaurin to get back so they have a much better team going forward. And the Eagles, on the other hand, their offense just, I don't know. Here's a team that's 4-2. They've scored 142 points. They've given up 143. 4-2, winning record, and they've given up more points than they've scored. That doesn't bode well going into, the future of this season. So, all right, let's look at the Packers in the NFC North. They're first place, 3-1-1. And again, who would have thought that? The Lions, after losing to the Packers, went on a 4-game winning streak, and then they lost to Kansas City last week. I really didn't think they were going to lose that game. They looked like they were on quite a roll, and they got halted. And that's what you kind of come to expect in the NFL. Teams that you expect to win don't. After, for example, the Buffalo Bills, after they lost in a really wild game to the Patriots, I figured they'd come back and beat the Falcons, and they didn't. They couldn't. They only scored 14 points in that game, so it's hard to figure. Another one we'll talk about in a minute that's hard to figure as well. But right now, the Eagles are 4-2, Commanders 3-3. But this is a very close division. Even the Giants, they're 2-4. We'll see what happens. They're exciting to watch, like I said. Just kind of fun, tough type of team to giving it all. They're all. We'll see what happens in this division. All right, NFC North, back to that again. I said the Packers, the Lions are 4-2. They played 6 games. The Packers have only played 5. So we could see something change there. In fact, all the teams in this division have played 5 except for the Lions, who are 4-2. So things could really change around here. And this division is going to be a tough one. Every team's got a winning record. The Vikings and the Bears are 3-2. Packers are 3-1-1, and the Lions are 4-2. So this is going to be a fun division to watch, and they haven't played a lot of division games yet. It's going to be fun when they start playing more divisional games. Now, the NFC South, Buccaneers 5-1. I thought they were going to run away with this. They've won their last 2, but so have the Falcons and the Panthers. The Falcons are 3-2. They had already had a bye week. So they could go to 4-2 and only be a game back. This is going to be another fun one. Surprisingly, the only ones not in this are the Saints. They're 1-5. They're just having a tough time scoring. I think Rattler's not even a bad quarterback, but they just can't quite get over the top on some of the teams they play. The Panthers, to me, are the surprise, as well as the Falcons, actually. Who would have thought the Falcons would beat the Bills after the game when they lost to the Panthers? I think it was like 26-0. It was some 33-0 or 26-0, whatever it was. They didn't even score. They looked terrible. And now they've won 2 in a row. They beat the Buffalo Bills. That's a big win there. They're just impressive to watch. They should be a good team. Now, they've only played 5 games, one less than any other team in this division. The Panthers are another one. I think they started out like 0-3, and the Jaguars played them the first week of the season, and everybody figured, well, that'll be an easy win. And it didn't seem that difficult to beat the Panthers, and yet now the Panthers are just Bryce Young has looked good. They're putting things together, and they've won 2 in a row. I think 3 out of the last 4. So all of a sudden, they're in this race as well. So this division is going to be a little tougher for the Buccaneers to win than I initially thought. And the final one is the NFC West. The 49ers are 4-2, which to me is honestly surprising. With so many players on offense being hurt, they were able to hang in there. And if they can get Purdy back, Kittle back, Ayuk will be back soon, this could be a very formidable team. Seahawks are 4-2. The Rams are 4-2. And the Cardinals probably could be 4-2, but they figure out ways to lose games incredibly. Their defense is good, only giving up 127 points this season so far. And they've scored 130, so they've actually scored more than they've allowed, and yet they're 2-4. They have lost some super close games. They've lost 4 in a row, so they started out 2-0. Now they're 2-4. On the other hand, no one's running away with it. I thought maybe the Rams would. They didn't. They're 4-2. And the Seahawks came back after losing, and they beat the Jaguars last week. So they're 4-2. So you got a really fun division there to watch, and we'll see how that one goes. Exciting races in a lot of these divisions, very few of them where one team just seems to be walking away with the whole thing. All right, that's a look at some stats and the standings this Thursday. Appreciate it if you like and subscribe to this podcast. You can find it on YouTube at Just the Stats NFL, and you can also find it on your podcast apps, places like Spotify, Apple, and any other app you might use. Appreciate it. Like I said, if you subscribe, you can also contact me at Just the Stats NFL if you'd like, justthestatснfl@gmail.com, or just leave a message on one of these other sites. Hopefully YouTube, that's the one I check the most, but I keep track of the other ones too to try to see what's happening. All right, well, that's a wrap. Until tomorrow, I appreciate you listening, and I am out.